Imagine if a Mahindra hooked up with Robbie the Robot from Forbidden Planet, deep inside a Smeg toaster, at the conclusion of an alcohol-fueled bender, following a car dealer networking convention in downtown Las Vegas. Imagine that. Probably seemed like the right thing at the time, they went with the flow, whatever. But the unfortunate progeny of such an ill-advised union would doubtless be forced to walk the earth, somewhat like Johnny Cash's Boy Named Sue, rolling from town to town to hide its shame, cursed with not one, but 2 G-spots. Both grotesque and gutless. I'm Cadogan from AutoExpert.com.au. New cars cheap, but Australia only. Website. Code. K_N finally pulled the Mardi Gras camo off its all-new Tasman ute in front of a hand-picked crowd of sycophants in that renowned automotive hotspot, of course, excuse me, Tasmania. Where else? The result of this novel strip show was frankly even more outstanding than even I could have hoped for. This is the vehicle that Kia actually hopes will steal sales from Ranger and Hilux. The horror of this is amplified when you realise that these images that I will show you from time to time during this report were commissioned by Kia, carefully selected to make this vehicle look as good as it can look. That is just flat out amazing, dude. This is as attractive as a Tasman can look. Good luck with that Ranger and Hilux and all of the proposed conquesting. This report is sponsored by NordVPN. Get a huge discount plus 4 extra months of Nord for free right now in Nord's Black Friday exclusive deal. Go to nordvpn.com/AEJC. Online security threats are, of course, everywhere, but you do not have to be the next victim. And that's where NordVPN comes in, locking everything down efficiently in the background. Go to nordvpn.com/AEJC now. Every 2-year NordVPN plan receives a huge discount plus 4 bonus months on top. nordvpn.com/AEJC. Link in the description. Using NordVPN is dead easy. You just subscribe, download the app, and you connect. 1 click later, your IP address is shielded and your traffic is encrypted across as many as 6 of your devices. Nord is, of course, the fastest VPN on the planet. It costs only about as much as 1 cup of coffee every month to keep your data, your identity, and your devices secure. Masking your location means you'll be able to access streaming and other services that might be blocked where you live, plus you can continue to watch your favourite content when you travel. Go to nordvpn.com/AEJC now, boost your security, get that huge discount, and enjoy those extra 4 months completely free on every 2-year plan. It's all totally risk-free with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee. That's nordvpn.com/AEJC. Link in the description. So, Kia and its carefully selected hand-picked influencers obediently boarded Qantas Doom Air 666 and flew back in time 30 years to Tasmania, where they gave up 2 otherwise perfectly serviceable days to see Kia jerk a sheet off a ute. The great Tasman sheet jerk-off, so to speak. There was no drive of the Tasman, of course. No pricing was revealed. A few specs were leaked, but not the weight, the GVM, GCM kind of thing. They did confess about the engine, however, I note, and I'll cover that off in the next video. Suffice to say that in my view, Ranger and Hilux need not worry. So, sheet is on, sheet jerks off. Here's what we'd like you to say about the Tasman. Thanks so much for spending 2 days playing the banjo with us. For Kia, I suppose, this was quite a solid opportunity to work the impressionable and start suggesting strongly what they might like to say, which is, of course, part of the unspoken carmaker influencer gravy train accord. I'm sure the food was outstanding, 5 square meals a day kind of thing, the braised swan, the verve, etc. Tasmanian tiger on a stick, flambe, perhaps. It's quite rare to see a skinny, motoring so-called journalist is kind of where I'm going with this. The calorific overload might help attenuate criticisms concerning Tasman's staggering grotesqueness and relative gutlessness, and also pump up how genius it was for them to put a light in the tray, imagine that, and steps in the rear bumper that are approximately 1/3 as good as the steps in a Ranger. Now, Matt Brand from the YouTube channel Car Source bravely had a crack at them afterwards. The Ugly Truth About the Kia Tasman is the title of his report. That is brave. And he did a good job with it too. It's almost watchable, which is frankly well inside the top 1% of all Australian car reviews. But no, dude, I don't know how you can trust anyone with a giant Darth Vader in the background. Like, what is he, frickin' 12? This is not the way to be taken seriously, I'd suggest. What kind of serious journo puts a big plastic doll from Star Wars on his set? Christ. The deep truth, however, about public sentiment orbiting this hideous Kia shitbox is unearthed when you peruse Mr. Brand's video's comments. If you watch the median Australian reviews with Kia's ugliness attenuating hand up their backs, and then you read the comments, you'll note a massive disconnection, a fascinating one, between what the reviewers have been strongly suggested to say and what actual people in the street think. It's a proper unfiltered pile-on in the public square, I'd suggest. One of Mr. Brand's viewers commented, quote, "Is it too late for them not to release the ugliest ute ever made? This thing is physically revolting," end quote. But not before following it by 3 puke emojis. What does he really think? Another said, quote, "I agree. I'm shocked that no one at Kia sees this as but ugly." And also in there, quote, "The front looks like Milhouse from The Simpsons," which is quite perceptive. It does. It also apparently drew inspiration from a cartoon sloth, pretty clearly. There's more. Quote, "I'm no designer, but I think I can do better on the exterior." That's pretty insightful too. Like, the side view of this shitbox is exactly the way evil 5-year-olds typically draw trucks on the freshly painted lounge room wall in freaking crayon when you're just pleasantly and quietly getting tanked at the barbecue, isn't it? Mr. Brand's very perceptive audience also added, quote, "It's due for a facelift already," which is frankly hilarious, and, quote, "makes the Cybertruck look like a supermodel." Like, oh, railway urinal beating heavy metal Milhouse pretty clearly in the new game of Cybertruck Tasman Scissors. Also, quote, "This must be the most underwhelming Kia product to date, and the way the renderings kept us anticipating a real futuristic presentation." That's very perceptive also. Dudes in their basements with Adobe Illustrator and too much spare time did a far superior job designing a new Tasman ute for free compared with actual paid-up designers at actual paid-up Kia headquarters, which is amazing, and not in a good way. All Kia had to do to unfuck this mess was to graft the nose of a Sorrento or an EV9 onto the snout of Robbie the Robot and Mahindra humping. Punch a few holes for radiator flow if using the EV9, obviously, and the job would be done. How easy would it have been for them not to have shot themselves in the junk like this? 2025 Kia Tasman Ute. Controversial styling polarises the public. Kia's long-awaited 4x4 Ute follows a proven formula, but with a polarising styling package. Matty Rodonicus there, the mighty M-Rod would be his rap name, potentially, writing for the corpse of 4x4 Australia. Now, Emrod's been doing this a hell of a long time, #respect. He's had an Akubra surgically grafted to his head so he can live the dream 24/7. He's quite good at it and a damn fine chap as well, I must say. But I have to disagree respectfully with Emrod on this one. The thing about polarisation is there has to be two equal and opposite poles for anything to make sense. North and south, for example. North makes absolutely no sense in the absence of South. Like, in the absence of South, it's all North. Donald Trump is probably the world's most polarising person right about now. Lots of people love the Don and lots of people hate him, but not too many are indifferent. That's polarisation. Kia Tasman, not so much. It's only got one pole, the negative one, and the results are pretty clearly definitive. Channel 9's evil empire at drive.com.au bravely ran an audience poll recently, the other kind of poll, P-O-L-L. Is the Tasman a crime against aesthetics or the dual cab equivalent of Naomi Campbell outstretched on a polar bear rug? Is the gist of the question they asked. Not too many respondents ticked Naomi's box, so to speak. Controlling for idiots who couldn't decide what they actually thought but who voted anyway, well, fucking course. 79% of punters with an opinion went with it's a grotesque shitbox kind of thing. Go figure. Kia's social media manager might also need considerable mental health support in coming weeks, considering comments on Kia's Facebook page have taken aim at the car's looks, describing it as, quote, actually hideous, atrocious, way off the mark, such a disappointment, the ugliest ute on the market, a car with, quote, toaster vibes, and, quote, honestly the worst looking ute I've seen. This was somewhat bravely reported in rupertsnews.com.au by David McCowan. Toaster vibes is also quite good. Like, nice one, dude. We are as one on that determination, although obviously not biblically, because that would be extra. Kia obviously has an official view on its grotesque travesty. Firstly, with the expressive design we created, with the market so established, we had to create something new. It's going to be a new product with a new character. The real basis of the car is based on what the customer does with it and how the customer uses it. John Buckingham there, K backwards ends vice cheese of exterior design, who I suppose flew deep into the map of Tassie to apologise for, everything that so clearly went wrong. I would simply retort to J-Buck here that I agree with him in principle. However, I would also argue that what the median potential customer is going to do with Tasman in the first instance is simply refrain from buying one because it is so preposterously grotesque and relatively gutless. This is like trying to talk your way out of a knife fight in a phone box. You're in it, dude. You have to slash. You can choose a car that immediately resonates or in time resonates. J-Buck there, again, working his way through the talking points of the apology reported in Rupert's Rag. So, if I'm channeling this message correctly, and I'm not sure I am, adequately, whatever, it's hideous now, but it's gonna get gorgeous later, like the apocryphal ugly duckling once people, stop gagging. Only it's not the duckling that's going to change this time, is it? It's going to be us. We're going to change. And then Hilux and Ranger will be terrified and doubtless defecating in their duds all over town. This is quite clever, if they can pull it off. And It doesn't stop there. We have not gone out to polarize, but it has to stand out. Going into a market that is well established, we do have to have this bold character. Correct? It is bold. It definitely stands out. It's not polarizing because statistically, everyone thinks it's a hat filled with anuses. Right to the brim, dude. It's anuses all the way down. Hoping to carve yourself a niche in the market with this sort of grotesqueness is boldness exemplified when you think about it. So good luck with that, sincerely. I definitely look forward to admitting to being so wrong in just a few years' time when perception shifts and Naomi luxuriates on her bearskin rug in the tray of a Tasman, which I am driving. There's been a great deal of conjecture in domesticated reviewers' content concerning this grotesque vehicle's allegedly clever features. And this is an excellent way to divert one's commentary away from grotesqueness and gutlessness, which might otherwise jeopardise the ongoing flow of ad revenue, and no journo on the payroll wants to be the one doing that, trust me. Ask me how I freaking know. I'd suggest that this vehicle is also objectively grotesque in its execution. Like, you could argue that looks are subjective, largely, and I'd agree with you, they are, but there are objective dimensions to executions as well, and this is one of them. So I'd argue that on the work and adventure fronts, I can't see any evidence whatsoever that anyone who's ever actually owned their own ute and used it extensively for work and or play was actually harmed in the R&D process or engaged. This vehicle is benchmarked against a 2-litre bi-turbo Ranger, okay? That's like so obvious. It's got the same wheelbase. They cloned it dimensionally, and then they did some extremely cynical and inconsequential dimensional one-upmanship in the tray, for example. It's millimetres bigger. They did all this without attacking shit that really matters, such as the engine output, which I will cover off in the next video. And it's pretty interesting too, largely what they didn't do. But here, that so-called clever frickin' step in the rear bumper, for example, it's a clone of the Ranger's, kind of, only it's not nearly as well executed from what I can see. There's not as much clearance for some big buffhead's composite safety boot cap, is there? And anyway, why the actual fuck does a step in a bumper need a ledge directly above it? Does it do anything other than entrap the toe? Like, why does the bumper need to wrap over the toe cap of the climber, which does nothing as I see it except increase the tripping hazard? Why not just raise the tread of the step up to the top of the bumper the way it is done, just millimetres further inboard towards the centre of the bumper where there's no cap on the step and therefore no additional tripping hazard? Or just eliminate the stupid awning on the tripping hazard that is there now. This is what bad design fundamentally looks like. If you're gonna copy a concept from the Ranger, why not just go back to first principles and execute it better? And then there's putting a glorified glove box inside the hideously boxy right rear plastic fender flare. Like, what exactly are you supposed to put in that? And the correct answer there, nothing practical or useful. And dude, why hinge it that way to form a tray which is level with its own cargo floor? Whatever shit you put in there and rolls around is just going to fall out when you open it, so yay. And if the compartment floor was, I don't know, 30 or 40 millimetres lower than the tray, that wouldn't happen. So how hard would that be to execute? And why not put a decent load limit on that tray in the open position so that anyone who puts a rack on the back can just stand on it to access, I don't know, ladders or lumber, whatever? That would be clever. But 6 kilos of working load limit and advice not to step on it, please. For an example of this kind of storage that's actually done quite cleverly, just check out the Ram 1500, which does make sense and is actually useful and brilliantly, elegantly executed. This storage afterthought abomination on the Tasman is good for only one thing: an emergency head covering, like this. This is a 511 tactical Kia Tasman driver redacting head cover, which I sincerely hope will be released as a co-branded genuine Tasman accessory. You store it in that compartment. It just fits, like it only just fits. You hope against hope, of course, that you never need it, but if the chips do come down one day and you are forced to get out of that Tasman in a populated area, you open the driver's door, you take 2 hasty steps rearward, keeping your head well down, you open the hatch, you deploy your emergency cover, and then the public will not be able to associate you with that grotesque vehicle, thus keeping your grotesque secret secure. This might be extremely useful to fleet drivers who usually don't get much of a say in the vehicle they actually drive and thus might be exposed unfairly to a high level of mockery. No great innovation in the tray, I note, either. No clever tie-down rail, no system for stopping stuff from sliding around if you're only carrying a bit of equipment. Like, say you're a hitman and you only want to dispose of one body this evening, like it's been a slow day, the cost of living crisis has impacted your business, whatever. The deceased is going to roll around en route. There's a risk of damage to the merchandise, leakage. Nobody wants that. It increases the cost of consumables, such as bleach, and you'll have to pass that on to the client, and they're going to query your freaking invoice. It's going to take forever to get paid. Trust breaks down. Like, we've all been there. Sure, it's got a 240-volt outlet and a light back there in the tray, but as I understand it, it's only 400 watts or something in that outlet, which is hardly that tradie friendly. The new BYD Shark 6 just craps all over that, I note. Plus, it's also faster than a Ranger Raptor, and it looks 1 billion times better than a Tasman. And this is their first ute also. Go figure. 400 watts. You could run a few camping lights and charge your laptop, I suppose. But that's about it, isn't it? No baked-in provision for a second battery in the tray or any latent inverter capacity to support one if you upgrade like that. These are missed opportunities all round, right? And then there's the headlights on this grotesque Forbidden Planet half-breed. They are objectively grotesque as well because not only are they aesthetically appalling, they're positioned in a place that maximises their vulnerability to damage during what I would categorise as even conservative off-road driving. And this is something that vehicle is allegedly designed to do, which is an epic fail. I'd argue that grotesqueness here is more than just skin deep. With the Tasman, it's baked in. They did not think this through. Utes are insanely popular in Australia, and for the ute buying public, ownership means you join a club of sorts, and that club is further split into tribes of sorts. Ownership is linked to your identity deeply in the ute space, and this is perhaps the Tasman's greatest hurdle. There's your Ranger tribe, right? Your Hilux tribe. And then there's your second-tier tribes for the D-Max and the She-Max, the Triton, Navara, etc. And of course, then there's the poverty tribes for the likes of those who own GWM utes, Mussos and LDVT 60s, who continue, many of them, to delude themselves that they got essentially a Hilux, only for like half the price. So if you turn up on a building site or at that legendary campsite at Dingo Piss Creek, what's going to happen, dude? If you're in a Ranger or a Hilux, you don't need an excuse. Ranger's got the grunt, Hilux, oh, what a feeling. You're in the strongest two tribes, right? if you're in a second tier tribe, you might spar with someone in the A tribe, I guess, or the B tribe. But we all know you haven't fucked up too badly, have you? It's just banter. It's almost friendly. These vehicles have existed for yonks, right? In the second tier, the D-Max, She-Max, Triton, Navara, all of them, they've got relative strengths. They're not both grotesque and gutless, are they? If you're in a Musso, LDV or GWM, your excuse is pretty much prefabbed. It's made up for you. It was cheap, dude, and you deserve pity in any case, because you can't actually see that it's not a discount Hilux. Plus, the LDV is actually pretty grunty. Gruntier than a Tasman, certainly. But what if you turn up in this new ute with its two G-spots, grotesqueness and gutlessness, commingled? The toaster vibe, off-road express. What is your excuse? How do you explain this decision to everyone else? Nice interior, good steering and suspension, 7-year warranty. Forgot to go to Specsavers. I'd suggest that you are going to get eviscerated by everyone who's actually in a tribe. In a BYD Shark 6, you can say, I don't know, A, it's faster than a Ranger Raptor, so stick that up your ass. And B, how much did you pay for fuel last year? Dude. They are pretty solid retorts when you think about it. Tasman's not going to be as cheap as a Musso or LDV. Its standard deviation's more grotesque than Hilux or Ranger, and it's down on mid-range grunt. How do you explain that away? In the next video, I'm going to talk about Tasman's engine, which really does not measure up, especially against key competitors. If they had just done a proper job there and re-engineered that 15-year-old 2.2 diesel to match the Ranger's 2-litre state of tune, right? Only with 10% greater output in line with the greater displacement, that would have been the reason. That would have been enough. 10% gruntier, supplemented by more warranty, nicer interior, excellent ride and handling. Okay, dude, fair enough. Just slap a bull bar on the front and pretend it doesn't look like 20 gallons of anuses in a 10-gallon hat. Okay. But sadly, even here, Kia ticked the cynical box on engine development, and they just decided that barely adequate was sufficient. And here we are, reasonless, at the campsite, at work, in our high-vis, whatever. As I see it, if you buy a Tasman, the vehicle's deficiencies are obvious and out of control. You just joined a tribe that doesn't exist, nor do the excuses for joining it. I'd suggest Ford and Toyota are properly overjoyed with how the new Kia Tasman has turned out, and plans for the 2026 facelift are already well advanced, albeit behind closed doors.